Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode 10, y'all, of Real Reading Talk. And I'm your host, Miss Seisha. And with Real Reading Talk, we discuss the real systemic, real foundational issues about why there are low levels of literacy in the Black community and how we are able to combat these issues. And when I say real reading talk, what I mean is we have it straight with no chaser. We are talking about real talk. In the Black community, when we want to talk about something and we want to get down to the crux of the issue, we usually tell each other, give it to me straight, give it to me real with no chaser. So that's where the concept of real reading talk came from. And with real reading talk, again, like I said, we are not just about talk, okay? Because we do a lot of pontificating, discussions. We do a whole bunch of that, having meetings upon meetings upon meetings about, why our Black babies aren't reading like they should, why they don't want to read, the parents aren't reading. Well, we have all this conversation, and then still we are at the situation we are still in today, where you go across this nation and you will find that you have our Black children who are not reading proficiently, and our Black children are not even wanting to read. And so these issues right here, we talk about the pandemic and we're talking about the issue in terms of COVID and all of that stuff. This right here is an epidemic. This right here has been an epidemic for a very long time. And like I said, we are discussing where this stuff came from. This is not something that, Black people are born with, in which you have Black people who are not wanting to read, or you have an issue where you have Black kids who aren't doing well in reading. This stuff goes way, way, way back. And actually, it's even before the slave plantation. You know why I say that? I say that because when our ancestors were taken and snatched and kidnapped, one of the main things that the oppressors were doing is that they made sure that they separated our African ancestors. So if you had a tribe of people from a particular tribe or a village, and they were together, they made sure they separated them. Well, why did they do that? Well, what's the issue with that? Well, when you separate, that means that you can't communicate. That means that you can't band together. That means that it's going to be a lot harder for you to be able to have a revolt, to be able to fight back, because people are not together. You're not able to communicate a plan because you're with somebody in a group that you all do not understand each other. So that's where that first separation, that first aspect of the devilish things that was done to our people to oppress us. So that's where it first started. And then, of course, later on, they made sure they told our African ancestors, no, you can't learn anything. Anything that we teach you, it has to be to support our system of oppressing you, because our job is to make sure we're oppressing you to build up our nation, the nation that we still see to this day that has been built on the backs of our ancestors, and it's still being supported by oppression. So my point I'm making is this, again, with real reading talk, we cannot start the story in the middle. And we have to make sure that we are telling the truth. We are telling why we are seeing these ugly, disgusting statistics when it comes to our children not being able to read basic things. So with all of that being said, I hope that you all, please get your notepad, please get your pen, pencil, whatever it is that you choose to write with, because I have a phenomenal guest once again. This is not her first time. All right. She is just doing excellent, phenomenal things here in the city of Cleveland. And I want you all to be able to get to know, for those of you who this is your first time listening to the podcast, I'm going to have Miss Ebony Donley. I want her to be able to tell us about what it is that she does, and what, the things that she, how she was able, excuse me, I'm getting tongue tied, how she even thought about getting into her profession, as an educator. And so I'm going to right now give it up for Miss Ebony Donley. Hey, girl.
Hi.
Sorry about
Hey,
I'm all like,
it's okay. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the best of us.
yes, yes. So tell us, please, Miss Ebony, what it is that you do. All right. And also, too, I want you to tell us about your background as well when it comes to growing up in a home where literacy was prevalent in your home.
Okay, well, as you said, I'm Ebony Donley. And, reading was a big deal in my home. Education, period, was a big deal in my home. And so it's really all I know. Like, my mom used to stress the fact that education was the way to a better life. I don't know if people still believe that today, but that's the way I was raised. And so when I was 16, I got a job and I was working with multi-handicapped kids. And I found it so rewarding, and it just switched my path. I had wanted to be an attorney up to that point, but I enjoy working with those learners so much that I decided that I want to be a special ed teacher, not just a regular ed teacher, but a special ed teacher. And so, I just went on with it. And so I always thought like I'm still going to be an attorney, but I just fell in love with working with the kids. And so at Collinwood, we had the teaching professions program. So I entered that. And it was still of the mindset, like, I'm still going to be this attorney. Like, when I get to college, like, I'm just going to do this while I'm in high school. It's a program, and I could do a lot of stuff, but I just enjoyed it so much. We had so much outreach that we used to go into the schools. We can go into the elementary schools and do little activities with the kids. And I just liked it. And I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is what I have to do. Like, this is my calling, basically, because it always came easy to me. And I always had a lot of fun. And I always looked forward to it. So fast forward, I go to Baldwin Wallace. I major in special education, and my academic advisor was like, well, there's only a few more classes for you to get the elementary also. So why don't you do that? I was like, okay, fine. So when I came out, I took coursework for both. And when I graduated, I just had to take all of the praxis exams, which I ended up taking 4 in order to get the 2 licenses. So I did that, loved that, finished college, finished my student teaching on a Friday, got hired by the school district on a Monday. It was around this time of the year. Matter of fact, it would have been like right now because break was about to start. And so they said, just start in January, right after winter break. And so at that time, I'm now in January, I became like a 5th grade teacher. No, I started doing 4th grade, working in the room as an intervention specialist at first. So then I was doing that and I found it very rewarding. But as I started to see a shift in the testing policies and different stuff like that, I started to be alarmed at what I was seeing. And as I switched schools a few times because, they were closing schools back then and they had a massive layoff, in the early 2000s, and I had just started. And fortunately, I didn't get laid off because I had a special ed license. So I never was affected by the layoff, but I did have to move schools a couple times. And I was noticing like different neighborhoods, the kids had different academic abilities, but were still behind. And so as we fast forward to now, 20 years in, I'm really alarmed. So 5 years ago, that's when I first started getting the tug, like I need to do a little more. I need to do a little more. And then that's when I started Literacy Innovations, which was a tutoring program. And I said I wanted to make it affordable because, we know about Sylvan and we know about Huntington Learning Centers, but they can sometimes be expensive. So I was like, there has to be something like that's in the, like in the middle, because, a lot of times the schools, they have certain tutoring programs. I know Cleveland Scholarship was a big one, but kids are only allowed like 20 sessions or so many sessions. And so it's like they have to try to use those sparingly, but our kids need more because they're starting from so far behind, by the time they start to make gains, they've exhausted all of the tutoring sessions that they had. So then, so I started the tutoring company. And of course I had business because, people were like, could you tutor my kids? Could you tutor my kids? So then I was saying, what can I do for people who can't afford it? For people who cannot afford this, what can I do? And so then that's when I started doing some community outreach. And so, I still continue that even now, because I think it's a big deal. I like to give back. And I think it's important to me because I live and work in the same community. You know, so I don't have any blinders on. So it's not like when I get off work, I'm driving 45 minutes to get home. I'm like literally going around the corner. And so these families that I service, I see them when I go to the supermarket. You know, I see them if I'm at the library. We're in the same community. If I'm out here riding my bike, guess what? I still see them. Sometimes when I'm sitting on the porch, like I really have people back, like, oh, Miss Donley, this is where you live? Stuff like that. So, you know, it's a big deal to me. It's very important to me that I engage with the community and that I engage with these families and that I let them know, like, it's more than a test score for me. Reading is a skill, it's a necessary skill, you know, and so I'm going to do my part. I'm going to continue to do my part. I am a literacy advocate, and I'm always talking about it's my goal to build a community of readers. That's my goal. So, you know, I have to take it one kid at a time, one family at a time. You know, I have to meet them where they are and try to bring them up. It's always wonderful when I'm working with a kindergartner because I'm like, oh, you know, this is good. But sometimes you may have to work with that sixth grader whose skills are not that much more of that kindergartner that you're working with, unfortunately. But so I still have to bridge the gap. And so that's what I'm out here doing, bridging the gap as best I can.
Oh, I love it. Y'all, I mean, y'all see what I'm talking about, right? I mean, it's like she talks and then it's like, all right, mic drop. I mean, what? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you just said a whole bunch of stuff that is just like so key and so relevant as to how we are able to get our children with the mindset of having reading high on their value ladders. And in addition to that, having the adults having reading high on the value ladders. And of course, you know, I love the fact when you said it's not just about trying to have our kids reading so they can pass some tests. And that right there is like just so crucial. But what I want to do is I want to kind of go back a little bit. I want you to hone in on the fact of how you even started, you know, wanting to become a teacher and how it was like that light bulb went off. And the reason why I say that is because, I mean, definitely, and you're one of those kind of people, like when I talk to you, you're the type of person where it's like, you know what you want to do. And then it's like, you have your plan. That's what I get from you. You know what you want to do. You set your eye on that prize. And it's like, you have the attitude, okay, nothing is going to stop me. I'm going to do it. Bam, bam, bam. And then you have it all set in place. It was like, that's how you were walking us through how you were doing what you were doing today. So what I want you to do, if you would please, you know, share with us how, again, in terms of even in your home, like, because obviously that was something that you were groomed with. That was something that was around you, you know, in your home, in which that was nurtured. You deciding, okay, first you wanted to be an attorney, then you decided you want to be a teacher. Where did that, you know, that spark, where did that come from?
I don't know. It's just always been there. I can't pinpoint anything. It was like, you know, I was always trying to show somebody something as a kid. Look what I can do. Look what I learned. Check this out. Mom, look what I did at school today. You know, I just always wanted to do that. And, you know, like they would entertain it. You know, like they would entertain it. Like, I'm sure they already knew, but they would say, oh, really? They would entertain it. Well, show me. And so my mother, she would be like, what did you learn today? Tell me what you learned today. And she would want specific stuff, but as I look at it now, she probably just wanted to make sure I was paying attention because as at home, I talk incessantly, but at school, I didn't talk at all. It's almost like I used to save everything because I wasn't allowed to get phone calls home. So what I wasn't going to do is get a phone call home because I'm talking too much. So when I wouldn't talk because what I'm not going to do is get in trouble because my mother's like, look, school is your job. I go to work. School is your job. Okay. So then therefore, I'm not going to have them call her at her job to tell her that I'm in school talking. So it was like, basically, I would, everything that happened in the day. When I come home, you know, I have to talk about it. So if I learned something new, if it was something I found interesting, I just had to talk about it. And it was like, not just my mom that was like interested. It was like everybody. everybody. So like if I wanted to read this book, if I wanted to read it to everybody, not at the same time, because that's not how I got down. Like I need my one-on-one with you, and then I need my one-on-one with you, and that's just how it had to happen. But I don't know if it's because I'm the youngest of two kids. I don't know if it's just because I was spoiled. I have no idea, but I've had some people in my life that just had me think that I was totally amazing then and totally amazing now. So I can't just be like, oh, it's this incident, because it's just the way I grew up. It's like all I remember, like, and part of the reason I do what I do is because I realize that these kids don't have that. Some of them, they don't have that. I don't know what it is to not have a support system, especially, as a kindergartner, first, second, third grade. Like, I don't even know what that was. Like, I remember my mother fussing when I was in high school, where's your book bag? Don't come in here without a backpack. School is your job. And I'm like, I'm on an honor roll. She's like, so what? So what? Don't come in here without books. And so then she would say, well, tell me what you did in trigonometry today. Tell me what you did. I saw you were reading, the Scarlet Letter. Well, something. And it was like, not to say that she's doing all of these things, but it was just like, oh, I better be on my toes, because if she does ask me, I better have something to tell her, because after all, school is my job. So, when my parents working that hard, you want them to be proud. And, my father coming from Georgia, like he always would tell the stories of how he was in Upward Bound and how he went to Morehouse and all of this kind of stuff. So it's like, you can't just sit here twiddling your thumbs. My mother used to be like, I worked too hard for you to be average. Oh, you think, you got to get that speech and all of that, and so, but she didn't just say that without action. All of my family poured into me, like everybody. Like even right now, my cousins who are the same age, to a little bit younger, I saw what you were doing. Oh man, I saw your Instagram post. Oh man, you out here doing it. And so it still continues to happen, but that has been my whole life. So by that being my experience, I find myself giving other people that encouragement. It's just natural to me because I received it so much. So I don't oftentimes think about it. It's not like, oh, I'm setting out. Like, let me tell Seisha she's doing great. It's not that. It's just like, it's in me. That's how I was raised. And so with me being able to, I will talk somebody up and down. Guess what I did? So I'm writing a book. Did you know? And then I'm always trying to get somebody else to do it too. Did you know that if you do Kindle Direct Publishing, you can do this? And oh, if you didn't want to do that, did you know you can do this? And oh, if it's a kid writing a book, did you know you can use Student Treasures? Like, it's just like what I do. And it's just ingrained in me. So I just love it.
Oh, wow, man. Oh my goodness. That was so inspirational. I'm just going to say that first of all, because the thing that you kept saying consistently over and over again was that you got support. Your family was there. They were your cheerleaders. And it was your mom and dad that was there first and foremost, letting you know.
Uncles, aunts, cousins,
Exactly.
brothers.
Right, exactly. So, but again, it started with that home base and then it extended, you know what I'm saying? So that right there is key. I mean, that's what you kept saying over and over. I got support. They wanted to hear what I had to say. You're like, oh, can I do this? Can I read you this? Can I show you this? And it's like that right there, that is that component right there that I believe truly, that is like the crux in terms of what our children are missing when it comes to the aspect. And of course, the name of our, the show is Real Reading Talk, but this transcends, you know what I'm saying, in all aspects of life. It's like our children need to hear and they need to believe from their parents and caregivers first that you can be anything you put your mind to. And that's exactly what you were saying. It's like that right there. I mean, and I hope that you all are taking notes. Those of you who are listening to this show, again, this is Real Reading Talk, and I'm your host, Miss Seisha, and this is my wonderful, lovely guest, Miss Ebony. And, she is dropping jewels when it comes to supporting our children. And she's talking about how she was supported. And that right there is key. And I hope that everybody really is paying attention to that. And it actually brings me to the next question, because I've been reading this book right here. And I'm going to say the title for those of you who are listening to the podcast, and obviously you're not able, and I'll put it in the show notes too. And it's called Teaching Reading to Black Adolescent Males, Closing the Achievement Gap by Dr. Alfred Tatum. And one of the things that he talks about in terms of why our children, and in particular in this book, he does focus on Black males, but of course this goes for, our Black children in general, Black males and females. And he talks about how when our children, one of the things that they're lacking when it comes to reading is that they do not have material that is relevant to them. They do not see themselves in these books or in these reading passages. They are being told consistently over and over again that you have to read this particular passage in order to pass this test. That's what they are being told. But when it comes to reading, and as we know, even with reading, it's not just necessarily with you just sticking a book in a child's face. Just like what you said, when you were having conversations with your parents, when your mom was asking you about, okay, so what did you do in trigonometry today? Okay, right there, she wants you to what? Go inside and think back, activate, that prior knowledge. She wants you to go back, and talk about what it was that you learned in your class. All right. So those things right there, having those conversations with our children right there is building the literacy skills. And that's one of the things that we talked about even in our other episode that we had in terms of that extra talk. It sounds like you grew up with extra talk. It wasn't always the aspect of, like you said, yes, where's your book bag? Where's your homework? Go get go take your clothes and put them in the dirty clothes. It wasn't always the directives, but it was engagement. It was your parents, your aunts, aunties, grandma, everybody on board. Like, okay, Ebony, so tell us. Talk to us. All right. So what I wanted to discuss with you is what he said in the book. He said basically that, our children, they're not getting the materials that is relevant to them. So I want to ask you, how is that looking right now, in the school system by you being an educator? Do you feel like that our children are getting enough? And I know, and I want you to tell us what you're doing, but I'm talking about in terms of what you see other educators too, like just overall. Are you seeing our kids getting materials that represent them?
I feel like we do have materials that represent our kids. However, oftentimes their inability to read kind of cancels them out, because if some of what we do have and what we try to expose them to, they don't have the proper reading level. So now you have to try to take it down. And there's not an adolescent that enjoys reading like a children's book or what they deem a children's book. From the way that it looks, like they don't want to turn that book over and it's saying for ages 6 and up. Because if you're 12, that's still a blow to your self-esteem. So, we have to talk about their ability to, I guess, access, what is there. Okay. Because, we have a book that's written, it may be like a 4.8 reading level.
Okay.
You think that, but with some of the way that our kids read, you may be trying to read that with a high schooler and they may be struggling through. So like the educator in you will probably be like, they should be able to read that. And they don't understand that. But then the part that just knows everything, you're like, I don't even want to try to play around with this kid with trying to read this book. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, some of the children's books and the picture books and everything, well, they're better now. We have more now, but they hadn't always been like that. But, growing up, I'm not going to say I had like every character that looked like me.
Of course. Right.
You know what I mean? Right. However, I guess some of the messages and some of the content was still interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And, nowadays it's easier to find more multicultural books now more than ever.
That's true.
You know, and some of them are Caldecott winners, and some of them are Newbery winners, and some of them are, you know, the Coretta Scott King winners and stuff. So, you know, that is an issue, but I think the underlying issue is still goes back to the children just not having the basic foundational skills sometimes. And I think sometimes we use that other stuff because, you know, I'm like that too. If I wasn't seeing the character, I don't want to read. But, you know, like I sometimes get on that because I think sometimes like when I'm outraged at like certain books that they have access to. So I'm like, why would this be important over this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but at the same time, the issue is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
They are unable to read.
And I'm glad you said that. And actually, again, like I said, I definitely firmly believe, and I've read that, you know, in researching in terms of, you know, what's going on with our children, and a lot of stuff you can definitely, you know, how it's so funny how you'll read these different, you know, people have done research on stuff, and these are things that we are already a privy to anyway in the community because we experience it. We're like, okay, yeah, we know that, you know what I'm saying, you know, but I think one of the main key things that you said before, again, is the fact that you got that support and you had that engagement. And so you had family who was always trying to talk to you about, you know, different things. You know, I know you've spoken about how your father, you know what I'm saying, he definitely is very knowledgeable when it comes to, you know, African history and African-American history, you know what I'm saying, and those sorts of things. You said he went to Morehouse, right?
He always tells me about Upward Bound and what he did.
Right.
Growing up in Georgia and all of this,
right.
You know, and it's just like a big deal. So you're just like, look, I know I'm gonna do something. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it's almost like the standard has been set. Like I'm gonna have to do a little something. Like
exactly.
You know, exactly. If he was on college campus doing Upward Bound when he was like 16 or something, like I mean, it can't just stop there. And I'm his only child. Like
exactly.
Showing.
And that right there again, and seeing that ties into what we're talking about too, the high expectations. When you talked about that, you come from a family of high expectations, and the expectations was the fact that they're like, hey, look, Ebony, you are going to be something, whatever it is that you choose to do, it's going to be something that is great and of value. And that to me right there, I believe that is one of the underlying messages that we have to be able to get across to our children. We have to be able to link them. And this goes into, I was listening to a lecture by Dr. Amos Wilson. He's has passed on, but he left, man, tons of knowledge. He's written books. You know, I think he was I believe he had a degree in psychology, if I'm not mistaken. And he basically, his thing was, again, having that African-centeredness, having that Afrocentric way of thinking for our Black children when it comes to education. And this is what sparked me in terms of my question when I had reached out to you and I said, I want us to be able to give the people some different, some reasons, some good reasons that our children can start to really, really resonate on as to why it's important to read. And one of the things, and going back to what he talked about, he said the same thing that, you know, I've heard others say. I know I felt this way as well. And of course, me and you, we talked about that. You feel this way as well. We cannot keep relating our children having to learn to read to pass the tests. And just like he made a good point, he was like, we can't keep saying that. Number one, we have to get our children to understand that reading is a way to free themselves, to free us as a community. What do we mean by that? What does that mean? That means that so that we can be in a position where we are doing great things for our community, we are building our communities up, and we are sustaining our communities. So we have to be able to link reading to that, because what happens is we want them to understand that, yes, when you are learning to read, you're basically putting yourself in a position where you are showing that what you're learning, what you're doing is going to be of value to your community where you come from. And so that piece right there, to me, I was like, ding. I said, oh yeah, I said, we got to talk about that. I said, because one of the things, I remember texting you, I said, what do our children say? A lot of times they'll say, why we got to read anyway? I've heard that. Why we got to read anyway? I don't want to read. I hate reading? Why we got to do this? Is it because it's going to be on the test? You know, these is real things, real talk, right? So I would like to know, how is it that we can be able to start saying, giving those types of answers to our children without putting the test into it? What are some things that we can make them connect to, just like how you got connected? You know what I'm saying? Because real talk, real reading talk. You have a lot of our children who are not getting that motivation that you've gotten. I mean, even I'll say, even for myself, I've gotten that motivation, but I will say, you know, I definitely think that, you know, and my parents, I ain't trying to, you know, bash my parents or whatever, but I would definitely say that, number one, I don't remember having as much as that extra talk. I'll say that. You know what I'm saying? Having a lot of extra talk and a lot of that engagement and all that. It was more, especially my mother, it was like, I better not hear nothing bad at the open house. I mean, it was like, so it was like, you know, that was my thing. And then of course, I'm a talker like you. So, and I got in trouble for, they'd be like, oh, she's smart, but she talks a little bit too much. She just run that mouth. I'm like, dang, you know what I'm saying? You know, but my thing is this though, even being that the case, I think it would have been great, you know, if the teachers would have said, I see that your child loves to talk. I think we should try to find some professions for her in which she can be able to talk and use those communication skills. Let's look into some different career paths that can help her, you know, that she would be able to make money from that skill that she got, because she got the gift of gab and we want to see her succeed. Now, I do want her to be able to control herself, but let's turn that perceived negative into a positive, into a career path, right? So I really think that we need to start doing those types of things too. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, in the Black community, we, for real, overall, when it comes to education, we want our children to be educated. Let's be frank. We want our children to be educated. I can't think of anybody who said, yeah, I want my child to, you know, not learn anything or whatever the case. That's why a lot of kids, unfortunately, they've experienced getting their butt beat. You know what I'm saying? All that, what? You ain't do this, bam, bam, bam. And it's like, and I'm definitely not condoning. I think we definitely need to, that could be a whole nother conversation, a whole nother show. We need to, I do believe that aspect, we need to get rid of that, because when we're doing that, that does nothing but just create some type of anxiety in that child, and it's going to hinder their learning, you know. But like I said, and going back to asking you about ways in which we can start connecting, you know, the reading aspect, getting our children to believe that, okay, this reading is actually going to help me be able to do this. You know what I'm saying? So that, because I am valuable, I am worthy. So can you speak to that? Can you give us, you know, a couple of things, you know what I'm saying, ways in which we could do that?
Well, reading is a life skill. It's just a life, it's a life skill.
Mhm.
I'm gonna give you a personal story about what I've been going. So I had to get a new roof put on my house. And when that man came with that contract, you know, that contract was solid. Now imagine that I don't know what this man is talking about. This man had, but once they came and observed, they had bulleted out every single thing they were going to do. They had what they were responsible for, what they were not responsible for. If I needed a certain extra amount of wood, you know, how much that would cost and all of that. And I was just thinking like, wow. And I kept asking questions. And so, you know, about how much do you think, like usually, you know, in the case of this, what would, because in my mind, I'm trying to calculate, okay, what's going on? That was like a real life example, because, you know, they were using things specific to roofing, and the dormer needs this and this needs that. And I'm like, you know, that's technical vocabulary. That's not like my everyday type of stuff. And so to add insult to injury, I had to get my front yard dug up. And when they came, I'm talking about, I signed like 4 or 5 different documents that day. We're responsible. We're gonna excavate the property, but we're not responsible for your dirt to settle. And we're not responsible for this, and you're responsible for that. And, you know, it was just things like that. So that's just a practical life skill. It's just a practical life skill. Like, I'm not trying to say, because, you know, I have a master's degree in curriculum, so I would like to think that I'm no dummy, but I was still reading that. I'm talking about going through with the fine tooth comb. Okay, and well, what does this mean? And in the event of this, what does this mean? And what's the warranty on this? And what's, you know, that, and to put it on terms that kids can understand. Most of them have a phone. Most of them, they have some type of phone. They crack, they break, they drop them in water, whatever. But they might not know about everything. But you know, if you have a warranty, you know, if you had to get a protection plan on that phone, I bet you're gonna have to read to find out what's covered. I bet you're gonna have to find it out. They have those video game systems that, you know, they love so much. You're gonna have to learn how to do it. You want to play on Xbox Live. Okay, so your subscription ran out. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, what's the deal? You know, what's the deal? Can we do this? Should we do this? What's option? You're gonna have to have some type of something, some type of knowledge. So it's like you're not gonna escape reading. Like a lot of times, anything that you love to do, you're still gonna have to do a little reading. I'm not saying that you might have to go through everything with a line by line, but at best, at least you would have to skim. At least you would have to skim something. So we have to get used to, it's a life skill. I think our students have been conditioned to think reading has to take place in a book, you know, like it has to be a book or something like that. And it doesn't have to be, you know, I read more pamphlets than anything, because anything you buy normally comes with some type of directions, you know, to do something. You might think, why the crayons? Why they need to tell me what to do with that? Like, I got this. However, still has a little something that they, you know, that they say. So we have to get used to, I think if we just start to show them anything you get, you have some lip gloss, they got the ingredients on it right here. You know, there's always something. You're gonna have to read something, you know, and this is even before we get into, you know, books, magazines, and things like that. This is just, you know, basic, you know, this is just a basic thing. And then two, you think about text features, like everybody doesn't have to read anything. I'm talking about, I probably couldn't put anything together looking at a picture. I'd be like, what? Dad, what does this mean? You know what? But if I read it, I understand it. But there are some people, they can look at that picture one time, boop, I got it. But you got to understand, being able to look at a diagram, that's a text feature. It still involves reading. That's a text feature. That's, you know, so all that, I think sometimes we just have to think a little bigger in order to break it down to our kids.
I love that. And oh my goodness, because I'm trying to write it down in the terms of, so would you say this? So the first thing is teaching reading as a life skill. And then you give the example, of how you had to read through your contract because of the fact of you getting your roof replaced. And then you talk, you know, and the other work that you had done or whatever. So that aspect.
Yes.
And then would you want to break that down into, and then what I did was I put number 2, I put show them about different labels on different things. So how all of that comes before actually opening up a book.
Yes. Okay. You think about it, you can take any kid. They can be about 2 years old. You can say to them, matter of fact, you don't have to say to them, you could be driving. What they'll say, there go McDonald's, there go Wendy's, you know, there's Burger King. Even if they don't know some of the other stuff, they can normally point some stuff out, places they've been. There's Walmart. How you know? Oh, look at that over there, because they know it. They're observing. So if they can do that, you know, if they know that that's Wendy's, you know, that's the first step. That's like recognition of different stuff. When they're reading, what are they doing with the sight words? What is it? It's nothing but, oh, that's the word too. You've seen it so much, you know it. This is the word the. You've seen it so much, you know it. You know, and so I think, you know, we have to think about some of those smaller things that we do and some of those conversations that we have with kids. You know, we're talking to kids. Kids are 2 years old. They're holding a conversation. So kids 2 years old having a conversation. So now they get a book. You know, you get to reading a book. My little cousin, Brown Bear. Every time I see her, if I'm at her house, and she was living in Michigan, I swear one day she was 2 years old. I read Brown Bear about 15 times, but every time she's at the edge of the seat, like she doesn't know what happened. She was just zeroed in, like on a bookshelf full of books, because they have a lot of books in their home. That Brown Bear does something for her. She would always go get it. And then it's like she would sit and engage with other books too, but it's like, so they start early. And I think if we just continue to encourage that, we will see more of what we know. But like when, but a lot of times what we do, we'll do it later. I'm doing something. This is not the time. So that's when we say that our kids don't value reading. When did we show them that it was important? My family showed me, because I would follow them along with a little coloring book that had a story. I'm like literally following from room to room, but they weren't like, girl, go sit down somewhere, go sit down. It was just like, I know they probably were in their mind, but they never killed that for me. They never killed that. But so I think so we're so easy. It's the hustle and bustle. We're gone. We have things to do. We have things to do. So we're so busy. And I think, sometimes we do it at home before a kid ever reaches the school, where we have kind of showed them that reading is not important. So now when they go to school, now the teachers are trying to convince them that it is, but who you gonna believe at first? Right. These people you've known your whole life, or this teacher who you just met and you just like to read. I ain't really on what you on because that's what kids say. You just think I should be able to read because you can read. But me personally, I do a lot of reading, and I don't read technical stuff. Like that book you're reading, I wouldn't read it like as of right now, because I feel like I've read so much stuff of that. So when I read, I just read something to decompress. So I normally read something fun. I'm going to read a comedy. I might read a mystery. I might romance is my favorite, but that's because I just can totally disconnect from everything that's going on. Because sometimes I watch the news and I'm like, this is too much. I read the newspaper or articles. I'm like, this is too much. So I read to be able to just kind of get like an escape, if you will. And so, some kids are able to do that too. And then some kids can relate to some of the things that have happened in the books too. But first we have to get them to open it. Like I remember I had some middle schoolers read The Skin I'm In. People were relating to that book, like crazy, because they're in middle school, it's a whole big thing. However, I was reading a book called L. Ray Jakes Rocks the Holidays. It's written for 6 and up, right?
I've seen his the L. Ray Jakes series.
And so my best friend bought me those for my birthday. She said, you have so much stuff. So I decided to get you some books for literacy innovations. So she got me these books. So I was reading them with a third grader that I tutor. Okay. And so this particular little boy, he's mixed, right? And so in the book, El Ray is like, he's in the third grade, and he was like, I asked my parents why we moved here, like we're the only ones, like we're the only brown, family here. And so that's what he's talking in the book. And he's like, well, except for like, let's say the other character's Kevin, but he's taller than me and he's a little darker than me, whatever. So basically, and so his father is giving him the talk, like, we have to stick together. You have to stick together. Like, what happened with you and Kevin? His parents, his dad said he was sad. And so the little boy tells his father, he said, you don't even like Kevin's dad. He said, I do, especially in a situation like this. Like, we have to stick together, and that's just something like that. And the book is written for 6 and up. And it was so interesting. And it talks about how his younger sister, she was at a daycare, and one of the kids had charged kids to be able to touch his little sister's hair, had charged people a penny. So these are all things that we think about, but this stuff is in a book.
Wow.
And it's a kid's book.
Yeah. That's what I'm like,
and it's a whole series. And so, as I'm interacting with this third grader, he's like, wow, that's crazy. Oh my goodness. Wow. Because, he's thinking like, well, he can even see where he fits in the situation. You understand what I mean? And so I think, so he was like, what? Because at first he was like, we're going to read a book. And I was like, yes. And I said, I'm going to read a chapter and then we're going to, switch off pages. So then he was like, that's it. We're not reading anymore today. We normally do 2 chapters. Today we did 3. He was like, what? He said, oh, okay. Then, next time. And I think sometimes it could be something like that. With a kid, a lot of times it just takes a gimmick. Like you find out one thing that they like or one thing that they can relate to. To be honest, I had never read any of the El Ray Jake's books, but I was just like, oh, this is cute. When she came out, I was like, and so me, I gotta read it, because please do look forward to a YouTube video coming soon. Once I finish the book.
Yes.
Just expect that that's going to happen.
Please
like,
do.
How I like to do it.
Yes.
So, yes. And I'm just thinking, and I'm like, wow, wow. And I was like, this is some pretty kind of heavy content. That's my adult lens looking at it. And he's like, well, yeah. And he was like, oh my goodness. And then, cause it's talking about how, some kids at school catch lice, and it's just different stuff. But I was like, this right here is amazing. And I'm talking about, I've only read that 5 chapters. So it's not like I've read, they led with that, talking about how his father is like a scientist and he can't really relate to regular people because he's so smart. It's just,
wow.
It's just interesting. So I think we can catch them. It's just all about that hook. Sometimes you get it's almost like just hit them with the commercial, like advertise it a little bit, make it seem like something that they would enjoy. Because even I've had like some kids who were really disinterested. Like when I was teaching the middle grades, like those 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they are a hard sell. Mm-hmm. They are a hard sell. But for them, I did it with Miracles Boys. I think that might be the name of it. Okay. It's on the Why Read book club for and it talks about, but in the book it's the kids are kind of like rowdy. They're from an urban area. They like in a little gang, and it's the life that they're used to, and they like, what I can't believe they wrote that. But it's like, you can find a book on anything. So you can, it's like sometimes they think that the only books exist are the stupid textbooks, stupid in quotes, that they have to read. They don't know, or we give them something, we might Wonder is on the reading list, and they like, I don't care nothing about this. But on the flip side, you got Tupac and me over here, you might be like, okay, I can kind of get with that. So we can find it.
Right.
That's sometimes we have to work at it a little harder, but it's a little something out there for everybody.
I love that. And I wrote down too, because I'm going to go over, because I broke them down into so far 4 different things, so that people can easily be able to remember. I was going to add just one actually to that list, but I just want to just repeat real quick. So far, what Miss Ebony Donley has said in terms of how we can get our children to stop saying, what was it why I gotta read anyway? I want to get it. Yeah. Why we gotta read anyway? You know what I'm saying? Why we gotta read anyway? We know we've heard children say that, probably more than likely we've heard our own children say that. We've heard students say that. We've heard these words a lot of times from our children. I'm talking about our Black children first. That's who I'm talking about first. And so the first thing that Miss Ebony talked about, she said, teaching reading as a life skill. And then she gave that example. That was an excellent. And see, that's the thing, for real, that right there, breaking it down on a practical level, letting our children know right there, thank God that you got some reading skills. You know what I'm saying? That are not just some, you got dope reading skills that you were able, and even when you did not, and that's the thing too, I believe that what reading does, of course, it empowers you to be able to ask questions, because you weren't afraid to ask them, okay, look, I'm reading. Okay, well, so what does this mean? Okay, hold up. So what happens in this? You were empowered You know what I'm saying? And then and also too, I'm quite sure they were looking like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? We can't run no game on her. You know what I'm saying? She asking questions. She's going to comb through this contract. Why? Because you know how to read. And right there, you were putting reading, and reading was being in a practical realm for you. You were able to put those reading skills that you have and apply it to something in your life that you need, which is a roof. So right there is like banging. Then you talked about how showing them the different reading labels, just like you gave that example of reading the ingredients of a lip gloss or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Which is great, because you think about it, even if, say, hypothetically, you had a child, they had to, you know, they were looking for a cleaning solution, and say maybe, or some type of solution where they had to use for something or whatever. And maybe that particular solution said that you have to wear gloves when using this solution. But if you don't know how to read, and then you use that stuff, and then let's say that stuff get on your hands, and you get burned, like, oh man. But it already clearly said on the bottle, you're supposed to use it with gloves. How did you know that? Because you read. You know, so right there, you were giving another example. The other one, how you said having a lot of books, you know, just like how you talked, was it your niece? You said that she loves the brown bear.
Cousin.
Your cousin, I'm sorry. Yeah, your cousin,
Mhm.
you know, and she loved, and how you said how she got a lot of books, but then how she had that one particular book that she wanted to keep being read to her. Right there, that's good. And that's okay. And I'm glad you said that. It's okay, parents, if your child gravitates to a book that's quote unquote below their reading level, which I don't like, really, for real saying that, because just like you said, you know, there are books, you was getting into that L. Ray Jakes book, you know, that's for 6-year-old and up, and you're like, dang man, okay, wow, you know what I mean? And that's good.
Mhm.
Like, it's okay. We don't want to shun them and try to make it seem, we sometimes too, I think it'd be about the adults. They want to try to prove that, yeah, my kid is so smart. Look, they reading the autobiography of Malcolm X and they 5. It's like, come on, stop. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, really, like, come on. It's okay. It's okay if they like brown bear and they 5. It's okay. Or even if they, you know what I'm saying? Or even if they are 14 years old and they wanted to read L. Ray Jakes. It's okay. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to make fun of them, you know what I'm saying, or whatever the case. And then I liked how you said advertising reading, making reading fun. You have to advertise it. You have to get the hook. You know what I'm saying? You got to get them engaged. That's actually what Jim Trelease, the Read Aloud Handbook, he's the author of this book called the Read Aloud Handbook. A lot of educators actually, they get a lot of tips from him. And he talks about that. He said his thing was comic books. He was reading comic books. Then there's another book by this man named Kelly Gallagher. And this book is called Read Aside. And he talks about in Read Aside where it actually, statistics show, when children are reading books for pleasure, when they're reading a lot of books for fun, that actually helps them on those tests. That actually helps them. So if you're allowing those children to be able to just simply read, get in the reading zone, just like how you talk about how you in the reading zone, like your thing is your you said your romance, you know what I'm saying, type of books. You be in the zone. That's your thing. You know what I'm saying? And that's good. That's what we want our children to have. We want them to be able to have that. And the last thing I wanted to add to the list as well is that I thought about this, because a lot of times, especially with our children, especially coming from impoverished communities, you know what I'm saying, you know, we coming from being on the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to having generational wealth, you know what I'm saying, we collectively, we don't, you know what I'm saying, truth be told, you know what I'm saying, we don't, a lot of times we don't have wealth, we just have income. So the moment we stop making that money, that income, then it's like, now we're at risk of being evicted or lights being turned off or whatever the case. So we want to create generational wealth. So one of the things that I thought about is, one of the things that we can do is that we can start asking our children about things in the community that they experience, things that they notice. Like, for example, I talk to my kids a lot about how we see a lot of abandoned homes, because we live in East Cleveland. And so we see a lot of abandoned homes, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, abandoned buildings or different things of that nature. And I'm talking to them, I said, okay, so, you know, what are some things in which that we can do in the community to help change this community? So I think one of the things that we have to do is start asking our children, what do they see in their community in which they can make it better. So for example, if they see a lot of garbage on the ground, if they see abandoned buildings, if they're seeing people just walking around and they're kind of like, not doing it, looking like they, may be homeless or they may be on drugs or something like that. And so when we get our children to start talking about the things that they're seeing that they don't like, or ways in which it can be improved, then that's when we can start asking them like, okay, so how can you make it better? And so that's when you start having them conversations. And then when they tell you, well, you know what? I want to be able to help feed the homeless. Oh, really? That's a great idea. How do you think we can do that? How do you think we can let the community know or get the community involved? Start with your street. Do you think maybe that we can, make a flyer up and maybe put it in the mailboxes of our neighbors and let them know that we're going to be feeding the homeless once a month? Would you like to donate to our cause? You know what I'm saying? Would you like to, donate some food? You know what I'm saying? Some tin pans, some foil or something? Because we're going to start donating. But how are we going to get that flyer together? Oh, we got to think. Think of the words to put on the flyer. So right there, we are connecting reading to something that our children are doing that's empowering and uplifting, and it's showing that they have value and worth, and it's practical. Why? Because they are showing that, you know what? I am of value in my community. I can help make my community better. I have something that I can offer, that I can give, that I can do. And I can actually help, other people get involved as well. So that was just, I get off my soapbox on that, but that I just wanted to add, that part, because I really think with our children, again, when they're in those classrooms, I can tell, I can feel it, I can see it, because I've been a sub. And then when I would go into classrooms, observing my children and stuff, and I would just see how the kids would just be like, they would just feel like, okay, what am I? Okay, I did this. Okay, so now what? I did this assignment, or they're looking at the assignment, they're like, okay, especially if they can't read the words, then they're looking frustrated. Then they start playing with their friends. Then they, it just becomes this cycle of they're disinterested. So then they start getting in trouble. They start doing things or whatever. But if we make it to where it's relevant to their lives, it's practical, like you said, and they can be able to understand like, okay, wait a minute, this reading thing here, this actually is going to help me be a better person. You know what I'm saying? And two, it's going to help me find my career path as well. Because they next question, they really for real, a lot of them be wondering like, how's this going to help me make money? Because I'm tired of going home. And when I go home and I got to deal with the fact of maybe the gas got turned off. You know what I'm saying? Or I got to go home, and unfortunately, some people may live in a home where they got roaches or some mice or something. You know what I'm saying? This is real talk. This is real stuff our kids are dealing with. So when you telling them, okay, you have to read to pass this test. If you don't, you're going to fail. You're not going to go onto the 4th grade, all of this stuff. And they're like, oh, why do I got to read anyway? You know what I'm saying? How is this going to help me? How's this going to help my family? So we got to make that connection. We got to make that connection. So what is there anything you want to add to that or whatever, to what I said?
Yes. Yes. I just wanted to tell you something that I just finished doing with the community center last week. Yes. So I was doing an entrepreneurship, I be on that. So I was doing some entrepreneurship with some kids from an after school program. And so, I talked it up real good. I showed them some videos. We talked about some different terminology related to entrepreneurship. But one of the things I had them do was create a product. I didn't give them any parameters. Create a product or a service. We talked about, goods versus services. So we talked about all that. And they had to create a flyer. Like whatever their product was, they had to create a flyer kind of like, and so, they were very boring at first. I kept saying, put the sauce on it. You got to put your sauce on it. Like, make sure. So I was talking all this junk. I said, because, I'm not going to want it, but like, let me know. So I was very animated. And so they got very interested. And I told them, I said, you could do an old school paper pencil. I said, or you can use technology. I said, you can use something like Canva, Microsoft Word, whatever you want to do. Some of those flyers were so good. Like I distinctly remember one boy, he was doing spaghetti. He had a picture of some spaghetti there. And he was like, you can get a half a pan for this much. You can get a whole pan for this much. And then he was saying, you can get it made with beef, you can get it made with turkey, you know, and it was just like interesting. And so some of the things they came up with, another one of the other students, he said he was gonna do masks. And I kept saying, what's so special about your mask? Like, why would I want to purchase your mask over anything else? And I was just drawing it out of them. And so it was interesting. And one girl, she was saying she was going to do slime, but she was like saying she said a little bit. And so then she was like, well, it's free, but a donation is like requested, you know, like the class is free, but you know, we're accepting donations on this. And like some of these kids, these are kids who they don't like to read. And they put so much energy and effort, because I kept saying, I don't know where the sauce at. Where's the And so then and so like when they would leave something out, I would make it a joke. I said, you didn't leave me any contact information. I said, so how would I know to contact you? I said, what, I'm supposed to go outside, throw up the bat signal? Like, how am I supposed to know? Like, if I want your stuff. And so they came up with some really good products. Again, I wasn't like, oh my goodness, you know, by them doing it on Microsoft Word or Canva or something, it already double checked their spelling. So when they got to seeing those red lines, they already know that something's wrong without me, you know, without me doing it. And so I think little things like that. And they came up with something good. And they were like, you know, like I can really sell this for real. Like in real life, like I can really do this. And I was like, exactly. Exactly. And so then I was telling them about Kidpreneur Day that they had through the Young Entrepreneur Institute. And so I was like, there were kids, it was a Zoom session, but it was like, there were kids from Africa on there. So there were kids from all across, you know. So I'm like, you know, sometimes I think some of them have not been out of Cleveland, or they have not been out of their neighborhood. And I think sometimes they don't realize that there's a whole bigger world that sometimes they can learn about through books. You know, like this is not the end all be all, like Hollywood neighborhood or East Cleveland, or because you grew up in Glenville, or even if you're from Solon, like there's a whole world out here that you can learn about. And some of it you're going to learn about through reading. And so I just wanted to throw that in about the entrepreneurship, because I got some really good work from the kids. And before we did that piece, we did photography, whereas they had to take some photos of things like how it had been affected basically by the pandemic. So they were supposed to take pictures of something and write like a little caption to go with it. You know, someone was like, that's all, but still you got to think, if you take a picture of the abandoned building, you're like, it's closed due to COVID, like, you know, we're on lockdown. That's still reading, that's still writing. And that's still what we want without they don't need a whole dissertation on it, but you know, they've done a little something, and you know, they thought about it because it was pertinent to the topic.
That's it, man. That right there, I mean, that's powerful. And see, and I really believe, for real, I'm gonna take it back to what you said, how you live in the community, how you engage with the people in the community, how they know you. And that's the thing. It's like you have developed this relationship with the children that you serve. And that right there is putting an imprint in them. They are, because really, if you don't care, I don't care how much content, you know what I'm saying, you know, whatever letters you got behind your name and all of that, they don't give a F about that. Real talk. They don't care about that. They want to know, do you care about me? Do you care about what I'm dealing with? Really? And I'm not saying that every teacher, you know what I'm saying, is going to live in the particular area or whatever. So don't get me wrong, but definitely we remember there was a time, you know what I'm saying, in the Black community, you know, where you had the teachers, the police officer, you know, even the lawyer, you know, all living in the same community. And so these children are growing up and they are seeing people who in particular look like them, who care, who wants to see them not just survive, because we want our children to thrive. That's the
exactly.
key. You know what I'm saying? We gotta get off of that. You know what I'm saying? Scratching and surviving. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, we know about good times. We know, you know what I'm saying? But we need to be thriving. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and I really, right there, it's like, obviously you fell into your calling. I mean, that is proven. You know, it's like you light up when you're talking about what it is that you're doing. You know, you are very well versed in what it is that you're doing. You know how to connect to the kids. You talk to them on the language, on the level they understand. You meet them where they are. All of those different things are just phenomenal. They're appreciative. And also, too, for real, they're simple. They're simple. It is like you said, it wasn't like, you know, you had to go get a dissertation, you know, or something like that to do all of this is simply you caring as a human being. And, you know, and you're seeing what it is that our children need. And I really, really pray and hope that people are getting that message from this podcast, you know, what it is that you are providing and what, you know, what we're trying to do, man. You know what I'm saying? We are really, really trying to get rid of that attitude of, I don't want to read. Why we got to read anyway? You know, and also too, we got to have the parents. That's the key because the kids can learn all day long, but they go home and they go home to an environment where the baby is running behind them, like you said you were doing. I want to do. Parents, please, and I'm talking to myself first. Please, we got to make sure that we are on board and we are listening to our children. And even say that we understand. Say if you know you can't sit at that right there, or you got to go and take care of something. Just simply let the child know, look at them in the face, say, look, I want to listen to what you got to say. I want to hear you. I want to hear you read that book. I can't right now, but we can do it at this time. So you are being intentional, you know, so they know, they feel like, okay, all right, you address me. All right, thank you. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they want. They want to feel like they got worth and value, you know, just like any human being, right? You don't want to be talking to nobody and then they looking away, they on their phone, you know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, it's no, you know what I mean? So we know we wouldn't want that. So we can't treat our babies like that. And that right there is just powerful. But what I want to do, because we're going to get ready to end and everything, I want you to be able to tell everybody, because I do want you to, because I forgot, because I know you're getting acknowledged for being the unsung. Was that what it's called? Can you tell everybody about the awards you got? I don't want to jack it up. Tell everybody about the awards you're getting, Ebony.
Well, I'm not really sure what it entails or everything, but I just know it's an honor. And so what happened was somebody nominated me as an unsung hero through the Cleveland Public Library through the Collinwood branch. And so I was very shocked when I got the call. When the lady called me, I said, oh, I have some overdue library books. And she started laughing. And so she said, that's not why I called. And so basically, through some of my community engagement, some of the things I've been doing, somebody nominated me to, you know, get honored. I don't know what it entails, but I just know they wanted a photo and they said something about it was going to be playing on WOIO on Martin Luther King Day. They didn't give me the time or anything, but they told me that they were going to send me the flyer when the marketing team had it developed. So I'm not sure everything it entails, but I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. So we'll see, you know, I'll let you know about that as I get more information coming in. And then also, I just have to tell you, so the Better Business Bureau reached out to me and they want me to be on their educational foundation, a board member for 2021. So that's another thing. So, you know, maybe people think I'm doing a little something with this literacy out here.
Yeah. I would say so. I think you're doing a little something. So, and for real, even if somebody didn't give you an award or whatever the case, the children that you are servicing, and of course I know the parents are just telling you how awesome you are, you know, and how much you are making an impact on their children's lives. You know what I'm saying? To me, right there, that stands out more than anything. You know, that right there is like, it's definitely evident. Like I said, it's showing in how you're talking about what it is that you're doing, how you light up, how you just get giddy, all of that type of stuff. And of course, it obviously shows from your home life and how you had your parents and aunties, uncles, could everybody just go. I mean, that right there, that's just so inspiring, man. And we all, and all of that stuff, we have the ability to do that. We just have to make sure that we are intentional about doing that. And I also wanted you to let everybody know about where they can contact you, you know, about you, because you are a tutor. So please give them your social media handles, your YouTube, tell people to subscribe to you, all of that, please.
Okay, so my Facebook is Literacy Innovations LLC. My Instagram is at Literacy Innovations. My website is literacyinnovations.net. But most important of all, you gotta subscribe to my YouTube channel where I'm dropping these videos for parents for free. I'm always giving you a fun activity to do with your learners, something that, you know, I have tried and true. You know, I always do it myself first. And then, you know, I'll let a few kids work with it to see how they feel about it also. But you have to subscribe. Literacy Innovation, the movement, because bringing this reading thing back and making it cool is a movement. So Literacy Innovations, the movement on YouTube. Please subscribe. It will be in your best interest.
Please do.
That's all I got to say. I felt like dropping the mic right there.
Come on. That's what I'm talking about. Bam, y'all. That's right. And with that being said, you have just listened to another awesome episode of Real Reading Talk. Again, I am your host, Ms. Sasha. With Real Reading Talk, we are here to deal with the real systemic issues, the real foundational issues of which why our Black children, Black families are dealing with low levels of literacy in the Black community and how we can combat those issues together. That's what's up. Now I'm dropping the mic. Y'all make sure that you all subscribe to the podcast, go to Anchor and Spotify and Breaker, and make sure you follow what I'm doing. And please give me some high reviews. You know what I mean? Tell me how we doing up in here and where I need to improve. All of these different things, or even some different questions, different things, topics you want to talk about when it comes to literacy, and our Black children and all of that type of stuff when it comes surrounding literacy. All right. So with that being said, thank you for tuning in, and everyone take care. Peace.
Bye.